Cursor versus Claude Code. I'm going to go over what they are, which one you might use, who should use which one, the workflows suited for each, yada, 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 yada. Let's go. So let's start with the big picture nutshell. What is Cursor? What is Claude Code? What is Cursor? Cursor is a full code editor. It's an IDE. It's literally a clone of VS Code, but it has those special sauce AI features built into it everywhere. Very user-friendly, a good user interface, UI, if you will. What is Claude Code? Claude Code is just the AI agent feature, if you will, but it runs in a terminal window, the command line. And yeah, it does integrate with Cursor or Windsurf or VS Code or whatever. So you can use it in this editor, which is what I do. But alas, it's just a back and forth AI agent that runs in the terminal. That's not to say it isn't as powerful, because it is, and we'll get to that in a minute. So let's examine the features. Just the core features, the big, like 3 or 4 features from each of these tools and how they are different. Start with Cursor. Cursor is the IDE with the AI chat agent. This is the biggest feature, the AI agent that is Claude Code. Command I, pull it up right here. This is where you type commands in. You can drag files as context. You can paste links as context. Choose your model or leave it to auto. Go back and forth between just chatting versus actual coding. Everything lives right here. Here is a past chat where it did a bunch of stuff. Okay. One of the bigger features in Cursor is tab, like autocompletes. You start making changes and it predicts what is this person going to do next. And it moves your cursor around with tab and it autocompletes using AI. It's really good. It's probably the best that I've used compared to Windsurf or Copilot, whatever. Again, Claude Code doesn't have that because it's not an IDE. Tab, this is like one of the big reasons why I still pay for Cursor. But alas, we'll come back to that. Cursor rules. Claude.md is something very similar to this. In both of these tools, you can give additional context to the AI agents automatically. For example, this project right here uses Svelte 5, not Svelte 4. I want it to use proper Svelte 5 syntax, and so in Cursor rules or the Claude.md file, it's marked down, you specify that. And again, when you first install Claude, you run Claude init, I think that's the command, and it creates this for you, and it examines your entire project and gives it like a first run here. But you can also edit this file, just like Cursor rules. And again, it just gives this to the AI agents before it starts coding. So again, you can put in whatever you want here, but I have used this syntax. Here's a little bit about the app, just so it has that much context. Here are the more important pages on my site, and here's what they do, the architecture, the structure, my third-party tools that I use, libraries, that sort of stuff, right? Claude.md, Cursor rules, they both have this. All right, moving on to something they both have. Access to your MCP tools, your MCP servers, that sort of stuff. Like all the nitty-gritty stuff, both of these tools have those things, accessing MCPs. And background agents, sub-agents is what it's called for Claude Code. They're a little bit different. Background agents are basically the same agent that you might use here, but they, again, run in the background. And you can kind of choose to do that versus not do that. I don't do it a whole lot. Sub-agents on Claude Code is a little different. These are micro agents that you should set up to run like on autopilot when something else happens. For example, refactor this code, or go through this code and look for this, or make a commit to GitHub after every single commit. I don't know why you do that, but you could do that. They're little agents that run supposedly automatically, although a lot of users report they don't actually run automatically, and you have to tell Claude, hey, run this sub-agent or whatever. But just so you know, a bunch of these sorts of features are the same in both of these tools. The big picture is that Cursor is the full IDE experience. You can choose different models. You can do a ton of different things. Claude Code is mostly just the AI agent, but that's not to say it isn't powerful. So let's move on to the quality of code. Or put another way, how good are these AI tools at generating your code? It's a dead heat tie, but in very different ways. Okay, both of these tools are extremely powerful, and then I can't say one is better than the other, generally speaking, because it's just not true. They do different things. They excel in different areas. So for true vibe coding, Claude Code wins. If you really don't want to interact with the code as much, Claude Code wins. Claude Code is better at finding these files, the routes, the structure of your app, finding what it needs as context. Claude Code is better. Cursor, you can customize it more. You could drag and drop these in here like, hey, I need you to look through this file, and you can grab documentation and paste this in here. Cursor is a lot better at that. It is more customizable for your context, your resources, and that sort of stuff. But Claude Code kind of does more on autopilot. It does a better job on autopilot, finding the context it needs to do things. True vibe coding, especially for experienced people, not complete beginner people who don't know what they're doing at all, but for anybody remotely experienced, vibe coding, Claude Code, I think is a little better. Implementations, meaning how big is this thing you're doing? If you're doing small tasks and very clear tasks that don't need a lot of creative thinking, don't need a lot of planning, don't need a lot of third-party documentation that it needs to go read or whatever, Claude Code, I think actually does a better job faster. The easy tasks, the small tasks, I mean like teeny tiny tasks that are clear cut, go and change this font. Go and make this text bold using Tailwind CSS. Go and do this very small feature. Claude Code is generally a little bit better and faster, I think. Just my 2 cents. However, the opposite. When outside resources are needed, if it needs to go research the docs or anything in that regard, I think Cursor wins. I think it's just an easier interface. You can put URLs into Claude Code, by the way, and it'll ask to fetch it. You'll actually have to give it permission to go and fetch this website. That experience is easier and faster, I think, in Cursor. So if you're using more outside resources frequently, you could put some of this stuff in Claude.md for sure, by the way. But I think Cursor does a little bit better job, but just slightly. It's not that big a deal. This is the big one for me when we're talking about quality of code. If you are implementing a big feature, let alone like build me an entire app, Cursor is better. It is. And part of the reason it's better, let me skip forward right here. Part of the reason it's better is because planning, generally speaking, is better in Cursor because of the models. And you'll see this a lot. If you scour Reddit, right now, models. I have the cheap Claude Code plan. It's like $17 a month or whatever it is. I only have access to Claude Sonnet 4. Apparently, Claude Opus does a better job at planning creative thinking for your features, for your implementations or whatever. I don't have access to that. I can't tell you. I don't want to pay $100 a month. Just being really honest with you. GPTs, GPT-5, the new one, especially in Cursor, are better at planning and creative thinking. And I want to jump down to an example because this was a great example. I have this on video. I have this app right here, Bulletfinity. This is brand new. It's just for fun. It's free. Technically, you can go ahead and go sign up or whatever. It's an infinite bullet point list. However, I'm using Firestore database, which doesn't allow infinite children, if you will, right? You can only go 20 levels deep, like Inception, 20 levels deep. And so I asked Claude Code first. Here's my problem. Plan out the thing. I even used the planning mode here, which you can shift tab to like cycle through the modes, if you will. I almost always start with planning mode. It's not that great. We're going to get to that. And it did some work. And then half an hour later, after like 4 and 5 times trying to fix errors, it wasn't working. I couldn't save my pretty little infinite bullet point list. It was giving me lots of errors. I have like lots of levels deep and it just didn't work. I undid all my changes. I went to Cursor. I used GPT-5 for the same thing. I mean, literally the same prompt up at the very beginning. I put it in here and it one-shot it. And the reason it one-shot it was because of the planning, the creative thinking. It thought outside the box. Claude Code was like, I'm going to take what you have and try and change it to do what you told me to do. Cursor and GPT-5 said, actually, you should just do it this other way. Which, by the way, if you're wondering, was like, hey, stop using the Firestore database for this and use cloud storage. As in, now I can go as deep as I want with my levels because there's no limit on cloud storage. It's just saving as a big old huge JSON file. And Cursor and GPT-5 one-shot it. Claude Code did not. It didn't work because of planning. One more example here, since we're talking about it. This right here, what we're looking at, you can add links. And it's pretty easy, right? Here's a YouTube link right here. I can just come in here and paste this link and whatever, and then boom, it works. And it goes to that link. It had to have some creative energy here, and the same thing happened. I used Claude Code to start with, and I went back and forth like 3 or 4 different times, and it was getting errors, and it was showing the HTML, and I was like, I don't want to use HTML. I just want to use like this markdown thing, and I want to have some, I don't know. It was a creative problem that needed a creative solution, and Cursor and GPT-5 nailed it. Maybe Opus would do the same thing if I had that plan for Claude Code. Maybe not. I don't know, because I'm not paying $100 a month, and I refuse to. But GPT-5, it does do a better job at creative thinking, big picture implementations. There you go. I actually love Claude Code for a lot of different things, but if you're doing massive features, especially stuff that's a little tricky, where you yourself can't even explicitly explain what to do, if you need it to think for itself and figure things out, Cursor, I think, is better. Mostly because of the model. Again, maybe you're on the max plan and you have Claude Opus and whatever, but that's what I think. Next up, let's talk about usage limits and pricing, because this is actually important. Not just which one's cheaper. Obviously, Cursor, I think, is the better deal, period. It just has more for the same price. I pay $20 a month for Cursor, and I'm paying the $20 a month for Claude Code. It's the same price, and with Cursor, you just have a ton more features. It's more in-depth, it's more, you have to learn, I feel like, but yeah, there's just more you can do. And the fact that you have access to different models at that price point is what does it for me, period. Cursor wins on that. However, there's a few other annoying things that I want to talk about. I just mentioned that. The Claude Code usage limits are actually shared with Claude.ai, meaning if you're going and using this as a chat as well, even if it has nothing to do with your project, just for life or whatever, it shares the same limits, which reset every couple of hours, but it's kind of annoying. I was doing one thing and then I ended up chatting just for like 5 to 10 minutes on something. I don't even remember what it was. And sure enough, I went back into Claude Code and it was like, hey, your usage limit is about to run out. It resets in an hour. And I was like, well, crap, that kind of stinks. So if you're using ChatGPT or otherwise, instead of Claude.ai, you don't need to worry about it, but just so you know. And also, as of this morning, again, they released something called Context, Claude Code Context. I don't know if this is actually going to be... It just happened. There's a context command here, which will actually tell you a lot more about your current usage, what sub-agents are using your tokens, and a bunch of other stuff. It's not super accurate, apparently. But again, I haven't even used it yet. It just came out. I need to update Claude Code. Okay. Ease of use, user experience, if you will. Number one, it kind of depends on your developer experience and your use case, what you're working on. But I gotta say, I think Cursor is winning. Obviously, the AI agent in a terminal versus a full IDE with a lot more really specific point and click features is going to be a little more user friendly, so to speak, for sure. However, there are two things I want to point out. Number one, diffs, as in, what did this AI agent just change? Claude Code doesn't show it. Well, actually, I mean, it kind of does. It shows it in its like actual chat window right here, but it's ugly. It's not easy to see. For example, let's do Claude-R. I hope I did that correctly. Yeah, and let's open up, how about, okay. So it shows this right here. This is ugly. It's not easy to see. You have to kind of like search for, what am I looking at right here, et cetera, et cetera. Whereas when you use Cursor, it shows you in the files, and it has that nice little bar that I'm not seeing right now that allows you to navigate to the next change and then accept or deny it, or decline, rather, accept or decline it on an individual line-by-line basis, which is actually really handy, I have found. I like quickly going through, accept, nope, not that one, decline, accept, because it will change things that you don't want it to. Even in successful code, I'm talking about both Cursor and Claude Code. It'll change stuff that you didn't want it to change, even if the code works. And so it's handy to see the diff. And yeah, Either way, you can use the like the Git diff viewer, if you will, like this. I don't like this. This isn't as pretty as what Cursor does automatically. I really like that. And of course, you can reject all and accept all, etc. You don't do that in Claude Code. The only way to undo Claude Code stuff is through Git, like Git restore and all that stuff, right? It doesn't allow you to just one click reject everything that it just did. Cursor does. And for that reason, the ease of use, the user experience, is definitely going to go to Cursor. However, one thing, and I'm going to talk about this more in a second, Claude Code is more naturally autonomous. Finding the files and context it needs, searching your code base for that stuff. It is, I think, better at that. And also testing its own code. It tries to test everything it does every time. Doesn't always work that great, but it tries to, and sometimes it is helpful. Cursor does less of those things. Finding context and then testing its code. Cursor does less of that. So I do think Claude Code is a little bit more autonomous vibe code-ish. Errors. Not errors within your code. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the actual Claude Code app. And Cursor, for that matter. Claude Code has a bunch of errors. I have had trouble in multiple ways. For one thing, Claude.ai. This is like maybe 75% of the time it works perfectly. And then the other 25%, something happens. And I have to refresh the page, or I get an error right here, or whatnot. It actually happens more than you might think. It's kind of weird. And then Claude Code, specifically, I had a rough issue. I've had it happen twice now. A rough issue where it can't update, and then something else breaks, and I can continue to use it, but it gives me like this error every time, and it's like, hey, you need to update this, and it's not working. And I try and update, and then I get a big error. And then I try and uninstall it, and I can't even uninstall it. I had to go in to the terminal and manually delete files and clear the cache and do this other stuff. It's annoying. It was just a roadblock in my workflow that day. It's happened twice. It's super annoying. So just so you know, it's not a game changer, a game killer. It's not a deal breaker, if you will. But alas, it does happen. Oh, one or two more times. Sometimes Claude just disappears. I will literally give it like an exit command here. Okay, that works fine. You can see it exit it. I'm still in the command line. I can just Claude to run it or whatever, and it runs back up. Every now and then, very rarely, it literally just disappears. I'll have code open over here, and I'll type something in, and this entire window will just automatically close and disappear, and Claude stops running. It's weird. It just disappears. Vanishes without a trace. I don't know what's going on there. All right, so let's sum this up here. Who should use what, and what are the workflows? How do you use each of these? Who should use Cursor only? Non-beginners, experienced developers, or even people with like a little bit of experience who want more control over what goes in and what goes out of the AI agent. More fine-tuned control. Or if you're doing huge features, if you're doing huge chunks of coding at once, especially quote unquote, I wrote down here, hard code, meaning code without a really obvious, easy to explain answer. If you have to go back and forth with an AI for planning out a feature, if it's not a simple explanation, a simple prompt to the AI, I think using GPT-5 in Cursor is much better. So who should use Claude Code only? If you were only going to choose one, who could use Claude Code only? Everybody else who doesn't want to pay for both of these. Vibe coding, I mean, in the real sense of the word, like I'm going to like tell it to do something in natural language. I'm not even going to like drag and drop in context because you can't in Claude Code, but I'm literally just going to like chat for a minute. Maybe you go back and forth in planning mode, etc. Vibe coding is better in Claude Code. You can literally walk away from your computer for like 10 minutes, come back, give it another instruction or follow up or change the plan or something. And then boom, walk away from your computer again. It's better for vibe coders. So the real thing I want to point out here is who should use both? Who should use both? I actually feel like everybody else. Cursor for planning, Claude Code for coding, and then Cursor for review. I've seen this a lot. This isn't even all that tech. It sounds like a lot of work, an extra step if you're using AI. It's really not. I have been doing this actually this morning as I was prepping for this video. I actually did a little bit more where I would explain a feature to GPT-5 in Cursor. And I would ask it not for the agent mode. I would do ask, and then I would ask it for a detailed plan. I said, no code. Don't give me any code. Give me the full detailed plan for executing this. And then I literally copy the entire thing. I put it right here in Claude Code, somewhere in here. Let's make a plan here. And I would say, here's a detailed plan for implementation. I literally copied in this entire thing from Cursor, GPT-5, and it one-shot it. Again, I didn't have to go back and forth. It just crushed it. Cursor for planning, Claude Code for executing. The actual code implementation, it's really good. And then Cursor for review. I haven't done as much of that, but people will also go back to Cursor or go back to GPT-5 and then ask it to review code, to refactor code, optimize, make sure to troubleshoot, all that good stuff, right? That's like a decent workflow. And there are also third-party tools outside of Claude Code and Cursor, which I'm not going to talk about in this video. Third-party tools that help Claude Code use Cursor, GPTs, that sort of stuff. I'm not going to go into that, but there are tools for planning where you can plan with GPT-5 and then one-click pass off to Claude Code. That'll be a separate video on this channel next week because I'm using one right now. Alas. So my friends, that's it. You can subscribe to me on YouTube if you want to see more videos like this. I would really appreciate that. That would help me grow to monetize this channel so I can sustain it, if you will. Feel free to ask any questions or give me a like, comment, subscribe, or whatever. And I appreciate you. Thank you guys for watching so much. If you made it all the way to the end, give me a laptop emoji in the chat for Vibe Coders. Vibe Coders in the chat if you made it all the way to the end, which is not going to be anybody because no one ever watches these videos all the way to the end. But if you do, you're among the chosen few, and you should drop a laptop in the chat. That's all I got. Thanks for watching. Adios. That's my sign-off line. I almost forgot to say it. Thanks for watching. Adios.